How do you see the job that Pete Hegseth is doing as Secretary of Defense?
Yeah, first of all, I think that Trump, what's very clear is the lessons that he learned from his first administration, right? Do not give these animals in the media, any meat. Do not throw them any meat because they will just tear you apart like piranhas, in the Amazon. I mean, they will just absolutely destroy your presidency once you throw them any meat. And so I think that, I won't address the leaking of classified or some of these people that have been dismissed. I think what Trump has done is demonstrated a sense of loyalty down as well as loyalty back up to the American people, and is basically saying, look, this is the team that I chose. I'm going to stick with this team. I think from everything that I can see with Pete Hegseth, Pete's doing a great job. I mean, he's out there mixing it up. He's bringing a lot of energy to that position, energy that we needed, positive energy that we needed. He's bringing, when you talk about just initial recruiting numbers, that's always a good sign because that means that the American people have a renewed sense of confidence in the leadership in the Department of Defense, starting at the top, and in this case, not just the top of the Department of Defense, but also the commander-in-chief. People are just more confident in the leadership that we have in the administration and clearly in the Department of Defense. And I think that both starts with Donald Trump and it also emanates out of Pete. Pete's, he's going to have to continue to build people around him that he can trust, right? I mean, there was a landing team. The landing team came in with him. They started putting some people into different jobs. And I think right now what needs to be done is Pete needs to take a hard look at, kind of a recalculation of the people around him. I would personally like to see Pete bring in to particularly the chief of staff position. This is an important position. I'd like to see him bring in, somebody that is kind of maybe in the likes of a gray beard, maybe not quite a gray beard, but somebody who's got a little bit more, building experience, a little bit more, not Washington, D.C. experience, but basically an understanding of a larger perspective, who has worked in there in the past, has served in our military, has some credibility. And there's a couple of guys out there that I know that would be perfect for those jobs. And we've provided some of those names into the White House and into the department. We'll see what happens. I think that's what Pete needs right now because the American people need stability in our Department of Defense. With everything going on, with what's happening in the Middle East, with everything going on in Europe, what Trump is trying to do is settle things down. But you can't have a settling unless you have a strong defense, right? Unless you have a strong military able to respond to the things that we need to respond to in case somebody decides to take a shot at us, right? And so I think that's, what I'm seeing right now is a little bit of chess match, right? In Europe, certainly in the Middle East with the posturing of our forces in the Middle East, in case, Iran decides to do something, stupid in the middle of negotiations that this Witkoff guy is negotiating, both in the Middle East. Witkoff is in the Middle East, and he's also the principal guy in Europe. And from everything that I see, I don't agree with everything, but I do believe that what the steps that they're taking are the appropriate steps, because right now we have to have a diplomatic approach, based on a strong economy, which Trump is bringing home, and we also have to have a defense that's ready, which is what Pete Hegseth, must do, right? He's got to continue to do. And he's got to work with, the good commanders that we've got. He's got to work with the services. And I'm telling you, that, the flag officers that are there, they better get on board. Like Pete had said, and I think recently, we still got to get rid of the DEI inside of the ranks. Got to get rid of this. And folks, for anybody that's listening from, the military community, which I know you got a large audience, Alec, don't just go and change the name because you're going to be discovered. People are looking right now. There are whistleblowers that are reporting on many of these people that are in there in the department and other elements of the government, and they're bubbling up and they're getting into the right places. And frankly, this is some of the stuff that Pete Hegseth is currently dealing with. So I'm good with where Pete is at right now. These are big shoes to fill. I think the level of energy and sophistication, particularly that Trump is bringing in as a guide and a mentor to help the secretary through some of these difficult waters, and some of the team that Trump built around it, meaning like I mentioned Witkoff as one. Those are powerful tools that are being applied right now. And frankly, our military, we're not as ready as we should be. We are definitely not. And that's not a lick on Pete. That's the last 4 years of basically forcing DEI down the throats of our commanders on down to every single troop. Never mind some of the other nonsense that we dealt with forced COVID shots and everything else. That, over 80,000 members of our armed forces were affected by forced COVID shots under the Biden regime. And, there's some coming to grips with that Pete is dealing with, and he's trying to do the right things. But that's another issue that is a confidence issue, right? And a trust issue. And those are the things that have to be rebuilt inside of our Department of Defense.
Do you think, General Flynn, there's some disgruntled employees in there? I know you're just kind of comparing it to the conclave. This was kind of an outside-the-box pick for Trump. I mean, this wasn't a cardinal. He went down lower. So it wasn't like he picked one of the generals, a 5-star or something like that. Yeah. He went down below and picked up one of the guys on the street. And so does that create a little bit of hostility? I'm not a military guy, but I know from working on a railroad, some of these guys, they get promoted and we look like, hey, where had this guy get promoted ahead of that guy? You see some of that sometimes. So do you think you might have some disgruntled people inside the military that are a little maybe pissed or a little jealous that a guy like Pete got up there and none of their friends got it?
Absolutely. I mean, 100% that is the case. And there's a lot of people in Washington, D.C. that look at themselves and go, they're in part of some think tank or part of some corporation that's part of this military, industrial, and security state complex, because that also includes the intelligence community. So absolutely, there's some disgruntledness, going on inside of the whole of government, not just inside of the department. So absolutely, and I think what Trump is, the message from Trump is, look, we've got to think differently. Hey, guys and gals, we haven't won a war since World War II. That's not, something that you're just going to go find on the internet either. I mean, we haven't won a war since World War II, and we've been at war almost continuously since World War II, almost continuously. So, and we haven't won any of it. All we've been doing is wasting lives, getting men and women killed, and wounded, many wounded, and of course, the treasure that we have had to spend on many of these wars, never mind just the last 20 plus years of war in the Middle East and Central Asia, that cost us to the tune of around $15 trillion. Insane. Cannot have this anymore. So Trump did the right thing, was to, really kind of, reach down. It wasn't really reaching down into the military either. It was looking at a set of skills that we needed. And I think one of the skills clearly for Pete is he's a very articulate guy, very smart guy, and he's not coming out of his background in the media. He's able to challenge them in a very smart way, and he knows when they're coming at him. And we need that right now, because we have to have people stand up to the corporate media that is filled with communists that want to destroy this country, period.
No doubt he's well equipped to fight back with that. And I was there with all the Navy SEALs as they did a march on Washington for Pete when he was getting confirmed. So, I mean, he definitely has the morale of many of the military behind him. There's no question about that. So
you're listening to the Alec Lace